Yo, what's up, Taylor? Let me hit up. How y'all doing tonight? All right, new pod alert. New pod dropped today. Let's move
I
this.
guess we can get the podcast on how there's no money in rap anymore later on in the pod. But I was listening to
Not playing that. That's the wrong clip. Instagram profile. All right, that's what we're gonna open up with tonight. And we're gonna open there tonight for good reason, for cause. What's up, fam? What's up, Walker? We're gonna be on too long tonight, so until these things get bigger and y'all interact more. But we have a couple things we want to touch on tonight. I got this clip playing because we're gonna start here. It's a couple comments on there that I want to address. While y'all coming in here, let me see how my fantasy team doing. It's already past 9 o'clock, so I done mislocked on all of them. They'll be good to go though. It's a comment that I want to get to here, but we say something here. I say something here, and you know I'm gonna address it because I see that this is making its way to the Euro American side of the internet. I'm gonna have to spend this weekend and clean this up this weekend. I'm gonna have to clean this up. Y'all gonna mess around and see my porn tabs one of these days with me going live. Well, how everybody doing tonight? But I'm a see. I say something in this clip that I'm starting to see that's gonna bother Euro Americans.
he's playing like trash.
All right, here we go. Yeah, because see, the reason why I say Euro American is because if you say white, then the conversation becomes a conversation based around race, and it's not like we're not just going to sit here and talk about racism because America's already decided that racism is cool. They're okay with it, so we can't discuss the ideal of white versus black or whiteness and blackness because that provides so many outs. So when I say Euro American, right, I'm reminding them that they too just got here. Most of them after Afro Americans or African Americans or Black Americans, however we want to call ourselves. Most Euro Americans got here after that. So this is just a constant reminder that we're discussing the science that y'all are trying to create behind race, right? But if I just say white, it provides an out. So I typically don't like to say white. I typically like to say Euro American, so we get who I'm talking about without the ideal of race being interjected. I hate how everything is hijacked. But let's play this clip. This is the clip from last week's episode Oh, you know what I call them? One block from the dot. Let's play this though.
James did to you, I pray my wife never does do to me. Granted, I don't like LeBron approaching you at the game. Yeah, a lot of you reporters ain't talking about Bronny's skill.
Let's be honest. Exact same reporters are also not talking about Arch Manning at all. Who's doing everything that y'all wanted Shador to do. Right? He's playing like trash.
Yeah.
Right? But nobody's touching it. You know why they're not touching it? Because that's Arch's grandson.
Yeah.
That's Peyton and Eli's nephew.
Yeah.
Right?
Facts.
So I'm paying respect to it. But Deion's kid, don't give a damn. Right?
Yeah.
LeBron kid, don't give a damn. That's the problem that I have when I see black commentators like Ryan Clark, Stephen A. Smith. Like when y'all start sitting here and y'all start going in on black athletes' children.
Yeah. RG3.
RG3. Give me your point of view on Arch. See, you don't touch it.
You don't touch
it. And it's like, yo, I know why you don't do that. Because you know that supremacy is violence. And you understand violence. And you understand that black men aren't violent. Even if LeBron approaches you.
See that right there? When I say that black men aren't violent, see, that's where this comment right here comes from. Black men are peaceful. LOL. Now I want y'all to look at this last name right here. Fredrickson. Okay? That is a Scandinavian last name. All right? So when we talk about one block from the dot, right? When we talk about the idea, the reason why I use the term Euro-American, because Mr. Fredrickson has to be reminded, right? And his account is private, probably because he posts dumb shit like this all the time. But he has to be reminded that he is way less American than an Afro-American, right? But under the guise of supremacy, he's able to sit here and say, I can joke about black men being peaceful. And I want you to, this is my comment. And I meant to do this from my account. I did not mean to do this from the Black Dads Club account, because I don't like Gavin being blamed for things that I say, right? But I posted here, if black men was violent, you'd know it, right? Even in the claim of violence that you say to like bother you, right? Like, oh, we're so afraid of black people because they're violent, right? On one hand, you're saying, well, black people are super violent, right? They're scary, right? They're going to rob you. They're going to kill you, right? But you did have to do the mental gymnastics to say black on black crime is the problem, right? There's no consistency even in your argument. And we have stupidly engaged in these conversations, right? I'm ignoring this comment, but that's why I wanted to open up tonight, because we're actually going to play something. We're going to play a clip tonight that's written by a documentary filmmaker. Yeah, let's click on it. What is his name? David Hoffman. And he's actually probably would be considered a liberal Euro-American, right? But this is a pretty good clip right here. It's about 30 minutes. We're not going to play 30 minutes of it tonight. We're only going to play probably about 5 to 10 minutes of it tonight. But as a matter of fact, I got it at 20-minute mark. Let's go to the beginning here, because I want to show you guys who all showed up for this conversation, and they did not agree. I want to say that the guy that was the president of the Urban League. This is about them going to have the March on Washington. So this video is from 1963. James Farmer, James Foreman, Whitney Young, Martin Luther King, Roy Wilkins. James Farmer, I believe, was the head of the NAACP at the time. Foreman, the head of the Urban League. Whitney Young was on the Congress of Racial Equality. And Dr. King, who represented the Southern Christian Coalition. And Roy Wilkins, that represented the SCLC. I believe that's the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. All right. So these are the leaders that came together in 1963. And they're discussing the idea of the Civil Rights Act being placed, right? But one of the things that you need to watch the whole video. But one of the things that they discuss here is, hey, even once it's passed, right? We really have no way to actually enact it, right? And much respect for James Foreman, excuse me, the guy that was the president of the Urban League. I might be misquoting it a little bit because I watched this video a few days ago. But one of the things that he said was he disagreed with the March on Washington. And I, too, would have been in his camp. I too would have been in his camp. I'm not gonna lie. I don't believe in boycotts and protests. I believe in intelligence, Not intelligence in the sense of, who's smarter, right? But intelligence in the sense of the way that the Israelis do it, if I'm being honest. Having information and then being able to enact from the shadows on that information. I believe in that. I believe that's a much better route for Afro-Americans in this country. No teeth judges had to enforce the Civil Rights Act of 1964. Yeah, no one ever going to do the right thing just because you pass a law, right? That's like when a law is passed, especially about something to get like civil rights, it's like a speed limit, right? Like no one would do the speed limit if there was not highway patrolmen to enforce it, right? If you posted a speed limit, there would be people that would break the speed limit every single day if there was no threat of enforcement from the government. And that's with any legislation that's passed. One of the biggest complaints that they have in this video is, police brutality, right? And they're saying, and it was actually police brutality in the South, which, funny enough, most police brutality now has moved to the urban centers, which are not mostly in the South. The Los Angeles, the New Yorks, the Baltimores, right? Places really outside of the Chicago's. You really don't run across this in the South, probably because most black people have kind of self-segregated again in the South and places that are going to be safe for them. But they discussed, like, how do you break that up? And they were saying, like, you should be able to sue police departments, which, you still can't do. Yeah, you're right, Barack. We all go 5 miles per hour over because there really isn't any punishment for it. So, but again, imagine if there was no punishment. Imagine if there was no enforcement. And that's what these guys are facing here. And like I said, I wanted to show in the beginning everybody. Kenneth Clark, I think he was a professor at New York University. But let's play a little bit.
A march on Washington. Mr. Wilkins, would you like to tell us what are the plans as of this date?
The plan is for a huge march to the Lincoln Memorial and a meeting there. On the way, what was described as a brief demonstration at the White House. But we hope to have this an outpouring of expression on the part of the people who wish Congress and the nation to know how they feel, how very deeply they feel about civil rights legislation. I think it's fair to say, wouldn't you say, Martin, that this is no attempt to blackjack anybody. We want to show how we feel.
Exactly. We are not going to Washington to intimidate any congressman or any senator. It will give a large number of people an opportunity to articulate their longings and aspirations for freedom, their desire to see meaningful, forthright civil rights legislation in this session of Congress. And of course, we also intend to arouse the conscience of the nation over the economic plight of the Negro 100 years after emancipation. And I think it can have a great impact. I think it will dramatize the issue. It will have educational value in that it will allow many people to see and understand the continued indignities and injustices which Negroes confront all over the nation.
All over the country. It has captured the imagination of hundreds of thousands of people.
And a whole lot of
Now I'm gonna skip to the 20-minute mark and let this commercial play out. But one of the things that Martin speaks on there is he said that he believes that there's an arrival of a consciousness in this country of seeing the Negro free. Now, I do want everybody to understand this is 1963. It's 100 years after the emancipation. These black men that are speaking right now, with all their education, with all their intelligence, are under an apartheid in this country. They are under an apartheid, right? They're not coming out of an apartheid. They're not negotiating with an apartheid. They are 100% under an apartheid, and there's legislation on the desk of United States senators and House representatives to kind of help blacks come out from under that apartheid, right? And one of the things that I got from this video was, and I know a lot of times people like, Mike, you don't know what the hell you're talking about, because I arrived super early on the scene, right? Like if this was a Scooby-Doo cartoon, in the first 5 minutes, I have figured out that it is not a ghost, and I know exactly who it is, right? But that doesn't make a fun cartoon. You got to get to the end. So I get it, right? But one of the things that he's speaking of is the arrival of America's consciousness on freeing blacks. And I think that we have to be real honest with ourselves right now that in America, there has been an arrival of the unconsciousness in this country, right? We have to be real honest about that. And I get it. I am super, super, super early on that because everybody wants to assume that America is the same. And I am telling you right now that America has changed. It is not the same. There has been an arrival of the unconsciousness in this country. And I will support it with evidence, right? Using the scientific method, right? Identify the problem, bring up evidence. The evidence that we have here is just take how we have taken the word woke, right? The word woke has become a perverted word, right? Woke means something that I don't want, right? That has never existed in any of the literature that wokeness come from, right? So even if you go through Egyptology, right, with the ideal of the all-seeing eye, which is actually on our money in this country, right? There's this ideal of wokeness, right? This ideal of an awakening. If you go Old Testament and they talk about the land of is it Shalom, I believe? Let me look that up real quick here. Sheol. The ideal of Sheol. Sheol is a place where the souls lie, where they're dead, right? So there's no hell, there's no heaven. All this, the souls are in Sheol. They're unawakened, right? They're dead, right? And even if you go to the New Testament, right, when saints die, they sleep. They sleep until they are awakened, right? The ideal of awakening, the rapture. Every ideology, right? Every religion has had this ideal of a great awakening, right? The ideal of being woke, the ideal of being able to see, right? But we live in this era now where people are saying, well, I want anti-wokeness, right? I want to be in Sheol, right? And as Dr. King in this video is speaking upon, hey, there's an arrival of consciousness that is occurring in this country, which if you remember that the civil rights era is actually going on at the same time of the whole flower child revolution in this country, right? There was this ideal of awakening in this country, right? And right now we have to recognize that there's the opposite, right? There's a deadening, right, of our values. There's a deadening of new ideals. There's a deadening of, the working class being able to move upward, right? Like now we have this ideal of, the top class get to move, upward. Yeah, anti-war in the 1960s as well. So there was a huge awakening that was occurring, right? So Dr. King's observation is absolutely correct for the 60s. Can we admit though that the ideal of the anti-wokeness is here, right? The ideal of everyone being in Sheol, right, to use an ancient Judaic term, is here. The ideal of being dead, right, is here, right? Maybe not physically dead, but upward mobility, dead. Bringing in new ideals, dead. Being able to fix immigration, just going 100% anti-immigration, dead. The idea of upward mobility in classes, dead. The idea of wages being raised, dead. Right? The idea of anti-corruption, dead. This country has decided that it is not going to be awakened anymore. It is decided that it wants to be in Sheol. As a people, can we decide that we're going to figure our way through that? Are we as Afro-Americans in this country, are we also going to say, well, everything that we've worked for also now is dead? Because the idea of the revolutionary, right, is the only idea that I want to kill. I forget who says this, right? But it was like the only revolutionary is a dead revolutionary. What we can do, which is easy, which is the vote, refuse to do so. But y'all know that one of the things that I focus in on every one of these episodes is right because I want to shake my community awaken, right? And one of the things that we're good at is like we know who the enemy is, right? Like we know, like yo, these MFers don't like us, right? And we can get out of the way of that. What we have been terrible about is being able to get out of the way of people that we think do like us. And I want to play this clip right here.
Things.
I'm really more concerned about the so-called gentle people of prejudice. The people who will say, I'm with you, I am for you, but what
You're
about
going too
property
fast.
values?
All right, I want y'all to listen to what he says here. Who he's worried about.
Holding it up by the people who say that Negroes ought to go back to Africa, and you're only apes anyway, and you think
So we
you're
used to
gonna
this
do the Civil
racism,
Rights Bill, you're
right?
crazy, and we'll run you in the Mississippi River first, and a whole lot of
But there's a
other
racism that we're not
uncomplimentary
used
things.
to.
I'm really more concerned about the so-called gentle people
The
of
gentle
prejudice.
people of
The
racism.
people who will say, I'm with you,
I'm with
I
you.
am for you,
I'm for you.
but what
You're
about
going too
property
fast.
values?
Not gonna live next to you.
And the man's right to run his business, and what about the standards of the school being lowered? And so for these reasons, who would say, well, maybe you shouldn't have all of this right now.
I love their
These are the
smoking
people
during
I'm
this,
really
by the
concerned
way.
about.
They should have had
Comment
cigars.
on that. I agree with you completely. While I share Roy's concern about the extreme bigots, I'm far more concerned about the good, the decent people who don't throw a bomb as they do in Birmingham or other places in the South, but they quietly pack their bags and move away. And this, it seems to me, is more damaging to our cause and more dangerous to the total cause of integration.
I have an answer for you, gentlemen, but go ahead.
Yeah, I guess, well, I'm concerned about the one in between going back to Africa and moving away, and that's basically the public officials.
Now, I want you to notice what's going on here, right? They know about the bigot, but they also are saying, like, hey, I also don't care for this person to say they're pulling for me, but when I move in next door to them, they out of here, right? They say they're with me, but when our kids are together at the park, they're out of here, right? We do have to understand, right, that supremacy is the bird and the conservatives on one wing and it's liberals on the other wing. This was something that our civil rights leaders in the 1960s knew better than anyone, which is why these men who disagree with one another, right, they don't all agree. Right? But these men who disagree with one another, this is why they was able to sit down and say, hey, let's have this conversation. A conversation that was so powerful that David Hoffman, as a child, sitting down there with his white parents, decided that he was going to go and march on Washington. And this is why when I see us as Afro-Americans just full-fledged get behind any Democratic candidate without demanding something from them, right? And then, because here's the thing, right? We'll demand something from them, and then the moment they say, all right, we're not going to do it, then all of a sudden we're like, oh, I'm going to go conservative. Well, look, we know that's the hard bigotry, right? We don't have to do that, right? We do have to work with who work with us. But the problem is because you've seen them as an ally when the truth be told, they've never really been an ally. Both teams want the gold medal, period, point blank. Both teams want the gold medal. All right? One team is saying, hey, I think you'll be good at silver. And the other team is saying, I don't give a damn if the silver medal or the bronze medal exists at all. Right? Both teams want the gold medal. Okay? There is one team that is worse than the other. I'm gonna fully admit that. But the first thing that we do have to understand as blacks in this country, first thing that we really gonna have to understand is that you don't have any friends.
Of you, and in Danville also,
Exactly.
because they'll know then that they have to be responsible and responsive not only to white voters, but to Negro voters as well.
White people in the South and in the North need education on this matter. I don't mean education on humanity as to Negroes, but they need education on the constitutional rights of Negroes and on the fact that he's a citizen. He's been here 344 years, and to hear some of them talk, they'd say, look what we're doing for you people.
Mm-hmm. If you've never been in Mississippi, and Roy was born, and I just have to get back because I think I have to just try to
was born there.
help her. Well, I'm sorry, your family was. I was raised down there, and I want to talk about these people. See, I think the president ought to go through Mississippi because I don't think he has any conception, any visual conception. Intellectually, he knows the suffering that's going on there. But just to see some of these shacks that people are living in, it's frightening in a sense, you know, down in Itabena. You know, it's just very depraved.
Itabena?
Itabena.
Yeah. I've been to Itabena.
Isn't it a depraved?
Oh, it's really something.
Pitiful. And
I think what we need to get at here is if we could get the total society to somehow lose this making a god of state rights and begin to see citizens as national citizens.
Right.
Because what's actually happened in this country is much of the miseducation, lack of education altogether, much of the social disorganization we see in the North that concerns us can directly be traced back to the indifference of the people in the North to the problems of the South. These people later become the welfare load, the crime rate of the North. If we had adopted the concept of a citizen in Mississippi being a citizen of the United States, then we would have avoided all these problems. That's the way they're seen overseas.
That's right.
I think the president ought not only look at the housing in Mississippi, he ought to look at the slum tenements in Harlem and in 100 Harlems across the country. Indeed, we might say that our people are not only being bitten by dogs in Birmingham, Reverend King, but by the rats in the slum tenements.
Well, aren't we saying, gentlemen, that a program has not yet been worked out to grapple with the magnitude of this problem in the United States, both North and South?
It's not regional.
So right.
Isn't that?
James Whitney is my boy here. I ain't even gonna lie. That's the dude that I rock with in this video. And I'm not gonna be sacrilegious here. I'm not gonna go anti Dr. King here, right? But Dr. King is speaking in the sense of like, hey, like there's a bigger problem to grapple with, right? But James Whitney, go back and watch this video. Look for David Hoffman on YouTube and go and watch this whole video, right? But one of the things that I want to show is the temperature that's in this video. Let me see, because he did another one.
Was there ever a time that was like aha or
let me see if I can find it real
you
quick.
Introduced me to some
and I'm just gonna play 2 clips here, and then I'm out of here tonight. I'm out of here. But one other thing that I want to show is that not a whole lot has changed, except the way that we respond to liberal Euro-Americans. That's honestly the only thing that has changed in over 60 years. We're not interested in
interracial. What the hell? I don't agree with the moderator nor Reverend Robinson that we want some kind of agreement. We want agreement by which we can live or die. You choose. If you won't listen to me when I make an appeal for the Negroes because you have no concern for the Negroes, listen to me when I make an appeal for America. You claim you love America. Well, we love America. But you are driving us back and you are making a Samson out of us, and we are going to pull down the pillar. Should you try to pretend that I'm crazy because I want America to be saved? And then you think we have no right to ask for something? Is it too much to ask you to grant us human dignity? Should we be put down and shot to death for this request? If so, you can aim your guns. What the hell do you think we care about dying if you're going to deny us the right to live?
You know, this revolution is filled with so many ironies, really. First you tell us that it is manly to keep your word. All right? If you are a man, you keep your word. And now all that the black people in this country are demanding, and even the black people in the whole world are demanding, is that you keep your word. You told us we were free. Well then, show us that we're free. You told us that there is justice, equality for all in this country. Well then, stick to your word. And let us see the justice and equality for all.
And I'm going to stop right there before I get too pissed off, because the second video does get me heated. But one of the things that I want you to notice, right? If we ask for it and it's not given, we've always had the attitude of we're going to have to fight for it, right? But our fighting for it has always been along the lines of picketing, protests, and then we have a small subset that actually wants to do revolution. If we actually want to create change in this country, we have to do it at the ballot box. It is the only thing that they fight to keep us from more than anything. They don't fight to keep us away from guns. They don't fight to keep us away from drugs. They don't really fight to keep us away from their cities anymore. The only thing that they really fight to keep us away from is voting. And this has nothing to do with politics. This has to do with observation. What is the one thing that they continually keep trying to change and hold us back from? It is voting. And next week, November 4th, is an off election year. Right? In practice, we need to all show up and vote. All right? Because nothing is really changing except the way that we treat liberal Euro-Americans. That has changed because we do treat them as if they were friends. And in the 1960s, it was clear to all of our leaders that they were not our friends. It was clear to our leaders in the 1960s that the liberal Euro-American, while the things that we want may align, not our friends. So I just want to leave it with all of us to understand that in the upcoming election, we all need to take the time to go out and vote next week and practice our vote and to not lose hope, but also not devolve ourselves into this idea of radical revolution, because that never works either. David Hoffman has a lot of good videos on his site. You get a moment, go check them out. It's pretty much all I have for tonight. Appreciate whoever tuned in. When I started the Wednesday nights, I really didn't know what I wanted to do, but I think low key diving into YouTube and pulling up a lot of these old videos from our elders, if we're being honest, right? Voices that we've forgotten, names that we don't know, we don't hear about, with organizations that we still are familiar with, the NAACP, Southern Leadership Conference, but to hear some of these men's voices from 60 years ago, to kind of understand how we feel the way we feel, why we feel the way we feel, and what missteps have we done, right? Like what mistakes perhaps we've made since we lost so many leaders, between the 1950s to the early 80s, due in part to, being taken out, no fault of our own that, we grew up without our forefathers, right? Other groups have their forefathers. We grew up without ours. But I think on Wednesday nights, I want to try to pull up some of these old videos to hear those voices so we can reinforce some of the things that we feel that we might not be able to really, get out, right? But also perhaps develop a pride in ourselves and more of a mission statement of what we should be doing. I know on the pod, we talk, somebody called us yappers, and I totally agree. We yap on the pod, right? It's fun. But at the end of the day, right, like this is the ideology. And that's all I really got tonight. I appreciate whoever, came into the room tonight. Kevin, appreciate it. News coming in here late. Indy Black, appreciate it. Baraka, Mish, everybody that showed up. Take another. Appreciate y'all coming in. But I think on Wednesday nights, I'll try to find a good video from the past that we can, just look at, listen to, and then hopefully in your free time, Thursday mornings, you listen to it in your car, and maybe if we can reinvigorate ourselves from the inside, heal ourselves from the inside, what's on the outside won't affect us as much. Yeah, they're trying to get rid of the vote. Yeah, they're about to get rid of every act, which is why we need to understand. We need to understand where our bases come from, right? Like, I don't want to fight for a Civil Rights Act and everybody think that that's just for black people, right? The Civil Rights Act originally was written for Afro Americans, the descendants of enslaved prisoners of war that came from Kuli-Tal kingdoms in Africa. At one point, that is how it was written, but they Title VII and Title IX the hell out of that bill, and that's not what it's for anymore, right? But we do need to get back to what our guys was fighting for. These are our ancestors, these are our forefathers. These men are not with us anymore, and we have, for the most part, no clue who they are, what they talk about, what they stood for, how they disagreed, how they understood how to disagree without canceling one another and calling each other fuck boys, right? And I think it's good to go back and find that. But that's all I really got tonight. Hey, I appreciate y'all tuning in. I'm gonna get out of here. I gotta do my job as a black man to put my son to bed. And hey, holler at your boy, man. Hey, new pod did drop today. I don't know how we've gotten to long form, but we have somehow gotten to long form. So please listen to it on the way to and from work on Thursday or Friday. And I'm Pastor Mike Will. Appreciate all y'all tuning in, and holler at your boy, man. I appreciate y'all.